The big boss man said cleanup's done, signed a paper, shook hands, packed up and run. They cut the ribbon, took their prize, but the ground still burns and the river still cries. Said we got it sealed, it's locked up tight, but I see the cracks in the pale moonlight. Ain't no steel strong enough, no law so bold to hold back fire 1,000 years old. Lou Batty Burn, they said he'd heal. Monday morning they closed the deal. Doctors talked, but the paycheck spoke, and the truth went up in a cloud of smoke. They called it safe, they called it sound. Now the waste runs deep, so they cut the ground. Another grave, another name, another worker lost to the same old game. A fence with signs so bright, said stay out, it ain't alright. But kids see fences like a dare. If it's so safe, what you hiding there? Ain't no guard to watch that gate, just a name on a file and expired date. Rust on the lock, dust in the key, and the poison sleeps where the world can't see. 10,000 years, that's the plan, but a budget cuts quicker than a government hand. 5-year checks, 10-year lies. Ain't nobody.
You know the problem with this music? Is even if you're vehemently pro-nuclear, your foot is still tapping.
When the contracts break, when the watchdog's blind, that poison won't care about the ties that bind. Bury the waste, stack it high, tell them all it's safe, wave the good years by. Move the dirt, change the sign, let another fool pay it mine. They call it cleanup, but I call it a joke. They keep the ledgers, but they lose the hope. Ain't no fix, just changing the shirt. Ain't no cure, just moving the dirt. Leaves just old plutonium, son. And the waste don't care when the money's gone.
That was awesome, man. So, like, no matter how pro-nuclear you are, you're going to like that song. You're not going to be able to deny the message. You can be pro-nuclear and still be an honest person. No. Just, how the hell does that work? We're back. Holy shit. What a friggin' day. It was a good day, but nutty day. Another nutty day. Just sometimes, because you got the headphones on, it sounds so much professional. Holy shit. You can find that at the link that's called Rolling Stewardship Blues. And the same link I put in the description will take you to that site and just type in that name. It's really good stuff. But unfortunately, we got to talk about not good stuff for the rest of the night. That's just the way it goes. There's always a happy ending, though. These shows. A happy beginning, happy ending. Where Dana's not talking. Anyway. Yeah, I know. Where's Dana's big head? Get his head in there, block that, spoil that picture. So as that before he loses offside power for the first time in 19 months. First time in 19 months. Let me explain that picture, though, actually. Like, you think that's carbon-free? That's just a fraction of the site. Do you know what carbon-free is? as if you don't exist. That's their version of carbon-free. Carbon's good for you. More puppies, more insects, more birds, more trees, more plants, your healthier bodies, more oxygen. Sephoria loses off-site power for the first time in 19 months. Oh, what a downer, eh? They're dependent on an off-site power, and I'm not sure what they're talking about. I think what they're saying is the fuel is still in the reactor core, because they shut it down for the war, right? Did they leave the fuel in the reactor core? Is that what's going on? Let's see. Lost its offsite power supply for more than, and I mean, we're talking like a couple of years ago. Has it been sitting there the whole time? That's insane. For 3 hours, it had 18 generators switch on. 18 backup generators switched on. We'll get up to speed here in a minute. A really good show. There's such thing as good when it comes to nuclear. International Atomic Energy Agency has experts stationed at the plant. Experts. Only they can be experts. We can't be an expert, just him, right? And they got the job because they cut a lot of people's throats already, whoever these experts are. Who the hell is the International Atomic Energy Agency? Who the frig is IRPA and ICRP and UNSCLEAR and the International Atomic Energy Agency? It's the same people on each of the committees, by the way. They're all United Nations. It's the same people. They just got different jobs. They wear different pins. Today they're wearing the International Atomic Energy Agency pin. That must be nice. But to the unsuspecting consumer, it seems like a lot of authorities are saying that everything is good. Have a nice day. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Raphael Gross said that I'm the Director General of the nuclearproctologist.org. You know, there's always, every company got one. So what has his become just, it's absurd. What was once virtually unimaginable, that a major nuclear power plant would repeatedly lose its external power connection. This is the International Degenerate Agency, which is the military-industrial complex, right? According to Eisenhower and George W. Bush, UN, for all intents and purposes, is the New World Order. You're like, no, Dana, that's a conspiracy theory. You're just conspiracy right now, Dana. Okay, well, listen to George W. Bush. Remember that creature? He's immortalized on my particular video. I added some extra sound effects in there, because I'm nice like that. He's going to call United Nations multiple times the New World Order. Can you dig it? 1, 2. Just play the video, Dana.
We have before us the opportunity.
Oops. How was that? That doesn't happen very often. Once or twice a year, maybe. Let me try to redeem myself here.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Yep. So he's saying United Nations is the New World Order. Right? Do I play it again? You want me to play it again? I'll play it again if you want me to. I don't want to personally, but I think I made my point. Eisenhower called them the military-industrial complex because there's 195 militaries, 195 countries' militaries, like NATO, right? So they got a much bigger attitude. these are not elected, they're not appointed, they're just this corporation known as United Nations has all these subsidy companies. And you better do whatever they tell you because your government will make sure. That's where they get all of their ticks on their list. The 18 emergency diesel generators started operating when the external power supply was lost. We'll get there. Power is needed to cool the cores of the reactors, which are all shut down for quite a while. So why would the cores still be in the reactor? Why didn't they put it in the fuel? Because they're too hot. I don't know. And they use fuel pools. So the fuel pools, which are missing, there's 36 reactor cores missing at Fukushima from the fuel pools. Try wrapping your mind around that statement. Right, there's 8 reactor cores at the top of each of the 4 buildings. All 4 of the buildings were completely destroyed. Now, if you go to the media got an interesting version of the events. So in their version, it looks like this. In my version, it looks like that. I don't know. I can't tell the difference. There's supposed to be a 190-foot, 19-story, 65-meter building with 8 reactor cores, and the reactor core at the time, allegedly, and I got the documentation here and I've showed it I don't know how many times, there was fuel in the core. Not that it matters, the building doesn't exist. Like if that was your 19-story apartment building, I sent you that picture, I was your maintenance guy, and I was like, what do you want me to do, chip rock? Like, are you going to have the day off tomorrow, Dana? I'm like, we'll see if we get you somewhere else. You can't go back in that spot. Not the nuclear industry, though. No, we can get a lot of homeless people, Dana. You don't know what we're like. 10 days worth of fuel for the backup generators is stored to the plant. In a war zone, they're good to go. Half the country doesn't even exist anymore. There's 90 conflicts going on at one time right now. I'm being polite calling them conflicts, extermination events, but whatever. There's 90 countries at serious war. But this is important. We got to focus on the reality. And this year I'm going to be focused. This is a focus year for Dana. Things are going to happen this year. I don't give a shit. Nuclear imaging market size to reach USD 23 billion by 2030. That's the scariest statement imaginable. This is where they radiate your loved ones until they die, and then they send them home so you can cry together as they die. And they get $1 million. No, Canada's 900,000, right? They'll take your kid. If your kid gets cancer, they'll take the kid if you won't do it. The kid has to get chemotherapy and radiation. You know, for about 6 months till they run through $900,000 worth. That's what the Canadians will pay. It's like a lot of states, actually. And when the kid is ready to die, got 2 or 3 or 4 days, maybe a week left into him, they'll send him home. No palliative care for your kid. They ran out of money. They sucked it all up in chemo, radioactive chemo. It's called radio chemo. And then if you survive for a little bit, then the tumors will show up everywhere else. Terrible industry. And they also radiate your food. So all the good stuff in your food, you can kiss that goodbye. Sometimes even the stuff that's grown in your own country. If you're shipped in your country, if you're part of UN, I don't know if there's any country out there that doesn't irradiate the food coming into the country. What's the sense of buying something from another country when they're radiating everything? That includes a lot of personal stuff. Nuclear imaging market size to reach US 23 billion. So they're going to radiate a lot more people. That's what's in the playbook. Kill a lot more by radiation. That's their game. I'll explain it to you. The market is expected to grow from 16 billion current genocide machine. Nuclear imaging is increasingly being used for diagnosing cancers because there's a lot more cancers, cardiovascular diseases, and neurological conditions / autoimmune deficiencies and injuries and illnesses. The nuclear imaging market has grown steadily as hospital, and they even spell it out for you. The demand is being fueled by the rising global burden of chronic conditions. Wow, what could cause that? It can't be carbon. It doesn't travel very far. Oh, right, I got some really hot tea there. I'll cut this flack it out. Long day. A very long day. Good day. We're looking for whales today from the coastline because I seen one yesterday. I got fever now. And I had the camera and the drone, and the batteries were almost dead, both of it. I had to come back home, get the charger for the vehicle. By the time I got back on my spot, it wasn't that much longer. Both of them had a decent little charge in it. There was nothing to take a picture of. Suppose I have 46 million birds here. So this model, Neptunium-239 dispersal, covers the entire planet in 20 days. That's what the model to your top left-hand corner. It didn't stop coming out. This wasn't like the apex of the plume or something. This is a friggin' joke what you're looking at there right now. It's still coming at you. And so this decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. Isn't that fun? You like that? You want more like that? And plutonium-239, of course, killed all the animals. And we're talking, wow, amounts of animals. Typically 3 cancers. Just bear with me here. I got one of the most complicated chores to do. Like, it's one thing to put the whole story together. It's another thing to sit there and try to explain the story. I don't know. Hang on. I feel I'm going to get lucky on this one. I got lucky first time. In your face. Bear with me. So the plutonium, yeah, there's a plume. Okay, Dana. Excuse me, Fukushima do? That's what I meant to say. So 144 beagle dogs and beagle puppies. This is just one of 93 studies that he done, Dr. Raymond Gilmany from Loveless Respiratory Research Institute in New Mexico. Bone tumors found in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death of 144 dogs. So the half-life of plutonium-239 is 24,000 years. So it has 10 half-lives. And so I don't know if any of you are going to live to be 240,000 years old. Good on you, though, if you do. You're awesome. Mr. and Mrs. Vampire, whoever you might be. I'm mentioning no names. So, but the problem was, and there's a couple of big problems. The biggest byproduct of radiated fuel is curium isotopes. It needs lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium, though. Why is that a problem? Well, because you can't, it's the biggest byproduct, and you can't have plutonium without a lot more curium isotopes. Okay. And the problem with this was the toxicity of 144 beagle dogs and puppies, which they no longer are allowed to do that. The dogs are now being adopted, and just a couple of weeks ago we had videos we played of the dogs, the first times they're ever touching grass. Beagle dogs, because they got a big nose, so you sniff the stuff in really easy. Works good for the scientists. They could go back playing poker and stuff. Tumors of the lungs, the skeleton, and the liver occurred. It's a nasty way to let the dog die with a skeleton tumor. Right, they weren't sacrificed / murdered. Bone tumors found in 93 dogs were the most common cause of death. That's coming for you and your loved ones, baby. You're not getting away from it. I don't care who you are. Lung tumors found in 46 dogs were the second most common cause of death, and liver tumor. So just plutonium causes typically, if you live long enough, you'll end up with 3 different tumors. You're going down. And the skeleton tumor is nasty, 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 nasty stuff. That's nasty. And we have a lot of those bone seekers. Not just strontium-90, clearly. All right, so here's the bad part of this story. Yeah, it gets worse. Neptunium-239 dispersal decays to plutonium in 2.5 days. So that plume now, they also have the plutonium plumes. So remember, the one to your left is neptunium, so that decays at a rate of 2.5 days to plutonium. So this is the plutonium. But this is only a 20-day model, so it hasn't had a chance for all of it to convert. But if this model was reaching ahead another 10 days, 15 days, then the plutonium model would be filled right up like that one there. But it still never stopped coming. But this was a sustained assault of not just plutonium, neptunium, right? It's like we do. Sometimes we'll get off track and we'll do all the different little isotopes that came to pay you a visit. They hung out and never went away for a couple of million years. Tonight, probably one of the news right now. The rising global burden of chronic conditions. We're sent post-Fukushima. Global burden of chronic conditions. Huh. That's an interesting, just an amazing statement right there. That's like in your face statement. That's what that is. That's what a nice person. They know exactly what they're doing, what the radioactive fallout went, and they got sniffer planes will fly over your cities, your communities. They know. I'm not going to tell you, though. Canada's expanding nuclear imaging service in response to growing cases of cancer and cardiovascular conditions. So there's a serious growing, when they're going to expand their slaughter machines. This is absurdness, boy. A hospital is the most dangerous spot on the friggin' planet. That's just... And a farms. Don't get me started. Canada builds capacity because of the nuclear industry. It loves setting up in prime farm country, right in the middle of it. Canada built capacity around chronic disease needs. It's expanding the nuclear imaging service in response to growing cases of cancer and cardiovascular disease. Yeah, but why is it growing? Normally that gets answered in the same sentence. Not Canada's... now when it comes to nuclear industry is very randomly candid like that. Smaller nuclear reactors spark renewed interest in a once shunned energy source. Alaska Beacon. Alaska doesn't have any reactors. In the past 2 years, half the states have taken action to promote nuclear power. Half the states. Well, I mean, this is an agenda cooked up at Conference of Parties 28, United Nations again. Always United Nations for some reason. It's a coincidence, though, I'm pretty sure. In the past 2 years, half the states have taken up action to promote it. When they ran away from 3 Mile Island, after they're allowed to run away, they were basically, a lot of people just went right to the nuclear meltdown to see what it looks like. They're like, let me in, I want to have a look. I want to get a selfie. Well, that's a lie. They didn't do selfies back then. They were thinking about it, though, I can tell you that. When they came home, the pets were dead or blind from the radioactive fallout. But the government no, go out in the house, it's all good. We left the doors and windows open, nothing came in the house. You calling me a lawyer? You come on over here, boy, you got a pretty mouth. You can't go calling me a lawyer. Only 2 small modular reactors are in operation. No, the one in China is 300 megawatts. Well, it's actually more than that. They're using nasty fuel. And another in Russia. It's not in the water. It was a proof of concept reactor, like a test reactor. And then they just hooked it up. They dragged it up to a place and they hooked it up in the middle of nowhere. And they just changed the fuels. And so they said the used fuel was stored in a storage room. That's not what you do. It goes in a pool. I had a pro-nuclear site the other day get in the comments section with me and say there was no such thing as a fuel pool. I was like, that's the same guy. He actually removed my comment today when they came after me again. Hang on. Let's just bring that. I think we should do tomorrow night. We should give him a few thumps, maybe. Hang on. I got it. It's right here somewhere. Yeah, there you go. Boop, 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 boop. Anyway, it's a pro-nuclear site. I'm going to go there. I'll just click on this one. But he said there's no such thing as a nuclear expert.
It absorbs a new.
Oh. Let me bring up his page. Let's give him some. He's getting up there. He's getting pretty powerful. Yeah, big shot, this guy. Yeah, big shot. 691 subscribers. He's a nuclear engineer, I guess. Big shot nuclear engineer. He's Tyler. He's debunking common misconceptions. Well, you get your ass on over here, boy, and debunk me. Unfortunately, we know that's not going to happen, so I'm going to debunk you. Tomorrow, most likely. And he's got a rage on for veritasium, disgusting veritasium. I actually put a comment there about it. They removed that. He's an unlikable person, so I guess they said he's perfect. They promoted the shit out of him. And you should see all the gobblers under the video appropriately. This day is coming really soon. It's coming, and it's going to hurt. He took one of my comments down today. I left the trolls there, of course. So we're going to get him for that. I take screenshots of everything. I'm a weirdo, eh? Should nuclear power be banned so future generations can experience birds, insects, whales, and trees? Is that crazy? Should we let the nuclear industry kill everything? I don't think we can change it. I think it's already too late, isn't it? After Fukushima, I don't know how you get back from that one. The United States currently has 94 nuclear reactors, 54 plants in 28 states. I spent 2.5 hours under the truck welding. And mission successful. There goes another shirt. A bunch of burn holes in it everywhere. United States currently has 94 nuclear reactors. Why does it always got to be in the worst place? The support bar for the differential on one side is let go. Newfoundland has really harsh winters. The rest of the truck is in great condition. Once I got that out of the way, because I knew there's something going on there. Like when I came home today from looking for whales, I just put it up on the 4 blocks. You know, as I was drive on, I got 4 of them, so just go in, you throw one under each wheel, and you just drive ahead. Put your park brake on and get out. You got lots of room underneath. I got a sheet of plywood, and just it's perfect, right? Don't have to worry about insects chewing your legs up. The United States currently has 94 nuclear reactors, 54 plants in 28 states. We should have the boat up and running hopefully Thursday, maybe at worst Friday. I think worst would be Saturday, but he was saying first of next week, and I was like, come on, man. I've been here quite a few times. You know me better. He was like, okay, we'll see what we can do for you. Said that between the mid-90s and 2005, there was no applications at all for new reactors. Like, it's perfectly, there's no birds feeding on the ocean. There's no bees on the flowers on the shoreline there. I've seen 2 dead halibut upside down in the low water with their belly up. I was like, what the hell is that? No whale. We seen the whale yesterday a couple times. I went back today for more. Let me finish off this story first. Said that between the 1990s 2005, there was no applications at all for new reactors. Well, since 3 Mile On in 1989. There was 100 reactors cancelled. So, in your face. Over the past several years, activities ramped up again. There's a number of factors that the problem, like we do a show where we just take the day's top stories on nuclear and we see if they're lying. If they're lying, then we'll call them out. And sometimes, like we recently done a set of videos. We've done Yale University. What did we do? I still got a bunch left to do. Again, we've already done them. Let me see if I can find it for you. Because the problem is, I produce so much. There's nobody produces more nuclear material than me. Like this educational stuff. Nobody's ever done it anyway. But there's definitely nobody, like the scumbag I showed you earlier, the nuclear scumbag engineer. And he says scumbag like nuclear engineer does. Hang on here. Because I can't remember. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Audit of the Harvard University's response to the earthquake. That was a 4-hour, 14-minute where I take down a bunch of big shots and from Harvard University lying about Fukushima. I show you the documentation to back up my assertion. Unlike these. Well, they did have some candid moments. I'll give them credit. Audit of MIT Department of Nuclear Science. This was their original videos within the first month typically that they posted in response to Fukushima. And the audience is seated with the pro-nuclear goblins. It's typical. And then audit of Stanford University. And if you watch, that's their original responses to the universities. The major shakers and movers, Stanford, Harvard, MIT. And so soon we'll get around to doing the Yale, the Berkeley, University of California, the Cambridge, the Oxford in UK, for instance. We'll do them again. We've done them twice already. This will be the third time. Well, we come up with documentation to see if they're true. That's all that was. It was an audit, right? They had a presentation for about an hour. And takes, if you tell, the longer the video, the more lies they told. That's why the videos are longer. If you haven't seen this video here, horror, gray whale extinction event, insects, birds. If you haven't seen that, that's a mistake. You got to go watch that right here, right now. Get off this show, get your ass over there and watch that. That's the video you came here. If this is your first time here, if you haven't seen that, you're a nobody. You're a nothing. Shut up, Dan. Get out the freaking show. Haven't got all night. Should nuclear power be banned so the future generation can experience insects? They'll probably hate us if we leave the insects for the future, right? According to the nuclear industry. Who the fuck wants whales? Excuse the language. I never said the whole word that time. Google, come on, man. Give me a break. Don't kick me off to artificial intelligence. Over the past several years, activities ramped up again. There's a number of factors we're seeing drive this increased interest. Probably the biggest one is the growth in data centers. How come data centers can't use, something like geothermal or something cool, man? Or anything but nuclear. Why do they got to use nuclear? Why does it got to be a small modular reactor? And why is it just the big, like Amazon, Facebook, Google? Why is it just the big, dominant, manipulative market manipulators acting as gods, and they're seated with the UN employees, right? Nuclear fuel advanced reactor firms aim for a diversified enrichment supply. Advanced reactor firms, this is a fancy name for a company that doesn't have a reactor, right? They're on the stock market, most likely, whoever these guys are, and they're trying to raise money, and they only got $1 or $2 billion yet, so They can't do anything yet, because 90% of the money gets stolen through administration in the nuclear industries. That's just the way it is. Like in the old days, if you were a criminal, you had to kick back to the Italian mafia a certain percentage of your booty, right from being a criminal. These guys they own the media, they own the universities. Advanced reactor vendors are signing agreements they don't have an application into the regulatory agency, they don't have licenses, they don't have a reactor design, 2 million pieces of paper. The nuclear industry, the regulatory agency has to hire 300, 400, 500 people to get through that in 2 or 3 years. Because you're talking about close to 100,000 pieces of paper for each person. And then 400 or 500 people have to coordinate everything and verify that it's not going to be an embarrassment or catastrophe for the nuclear industry. Not for that community. Don't give a shit about your community. So they're talking about high grade, weapons, not quite weapons grade, HALEU, which is very high SA plutonium X oxide fuel combination where they recycle uranium, recycle plutonium. But the rest of it, the other 1,000 isotopes, they say, well, we can burn up, which is not true, of course. Look at the plutonium X oxide fuel pools we have on this planet right now. It's totally different than the other fuel. You don't want to put it in the same fuel pool with the other fuel. The emissions from those are already 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. That's why you don't clean your windshields anymore for insects. Transformation of Fukushima legacy, unless there's like right now what we're seeing, the insects we are seeing, is typically, it's a species, like a keystone species for being eaten by other animals. And it's fairly big, it's clumsy, and it makes big splats on your windows, and it lasts for a week or 2 weeks during the major population spike in the summertime from all the larvae and eggs, right? But then they disappear for the rest of the year. And so if you don't have those few little keystone species that are still hanging on, because they used to feed all the frogs and fish, and little birds would raise their fledglings by, what was it? They done a study on 50 nests or something, like this bird's nest, for 3 weeks, 22 days or 23 days, whatever it was, for the fledglings to be able to fly. These were insect eaters. And they collected something like 5.2 million insects for the total. And so they gave videos to university first-year students to count the insects they brought back to the nest, because he had cameras in all of these nests, and that's how they done the study. It was a stunning 5.2 million insects to raise 50 nests of fledglings. And then just a couple of years ago, you're getting all of these people that were doing those studies started showing up saying, well, there was no survival this year. We found the babies, they were emaciated, they were undersized, and blah, blah, blah. And now the only babies we're seeing really are the seed eater, little small birds. Biophilia Skyscraper, transformation of Fukushima legacy. And I was like, oh crap, one of these, is it? One of these crazies. In the 30 years, so he's saying Fukushima happened 30 years ago, even though as far as I know it was 14 years ago. Not being picky, not trying to be a meanie or something. Or is he like, because look at the picture, is he talking 30 years into the future? In another 16 years? Is that what this is supposed to represent? I don't know, we'll see. In the 30 years, this was a really, whoever this is really clever, by the way. Following discharge of radioactive water, everything is tritiated on the planet because of the radioactive fallout that's already taken place, right? Excuse me. I might have a little hack tonight. I guess I should warn you in advance. Radiation levels in the United States West Coast spiked to over 1 million times normal after Fukushima. Explosions. I'm going to bring you a picture of the explosions per se. This is day 15, or day 5, March the 15th. It happened on March 11th. So if either one of these blow up, you can't get near the other ones anyway, which means they're going to blow up. And you expect it to see anywhere you have an accident. If you got all these buildings alongside of each other, you can't run back in there because, you know. So radiation spiked on the West Coast to 1 million times normal. But the real numbers, this is based on 8 days of radioactive fallout. That's levels increased 10 million times after Fukushima of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. It was 10 million atoms, which pulses energy. Each atom pulses energy 600 feet every second, right? For 300 years. But it can't just be cesium-137, by the way. But this was the French government, so this is significant. IRSN filmed contamination of the environment here. Oh, there it is. And so that plume covered the whole planet on 23 days. Not 24, not 22, 23 days. yeah, true, honest. Because that's it up there, 23 days. 0404. Oh, that one finished out, I'm sorry. Anyway, in less than a month, the whole planet is completely buried in cesium-137 at 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels of cesium-137. And the only stuff they're counting is, from the open atmospheric nuclear war they had. They called it testing. It was the same radioactive fallout with the same weapons. That's a war. If they do it anywhere else, we're going to call it a war. If they call it a test, then what are we supposed to sit back and pretend it never happened? Radioactive fallout doesn't care if it was an anger or if it was a test, right? It's the same radioactive fallout. Ecosystems have suffered greatly, time 30 years down the road, with several species facing the threat of extinction. Man, you are way out of line there. That's some crazy talk. Hang on, I screwed up already tonight, did I? Not too bad. Let me get this out of the way. Get this out of the way. I'm Dana, by the way. You haven't figured that out by now. My name of the site is Dana Durnford. Name of Dana Durnford. Good one, Dana. Good one. 1709-589-4406. If you're pro-nuclear, give us a call. Please. Give me a call. 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 No sense of humor on this planet. I forgot to do that earlier. That happens. It's not good. You like to do it at the beginning of the show. 30 years following the discharge of the radioactive water from Fukushima plant into the ocean. 30 years. Well, you covered the whole planet in radioactive fallout in 23 days. I know this is hard to comprehend, but the reactors blew up. They blow up. There was a tsunami. It ran right through the nuclear plant. Right through. I was like, who's your daddy? Well, part of blowing up is it makes it difficult. It's just impossible for the average person to appreciate the equation, right? What do you got here? A few surprises. Uh-oh, I'm clicking again. Dana, stop clicking. Oops. That don't matter. Let's keep her going here. Ecosystems have suffered greatly. Just hang on. What the hell is that? There's a little Dana up there in the corner. See that? Oh, little Dana. Right. Wow, I've never seen that guy before. So, with several species facing the threat of extinction, like all the whales are emaciated. Hang on. Just hang on for a second. People are crazy. Why is nuclear so complicated? Why can't he just be your typical scumbag? Why they gotta be so difficult? Here we go. Alright, let's go this way. Their time 30 years in the future, I'm talking 14. So in the last 14 years, grey whale die-off fear to starving whales migrate north. To the uninitiated, that doesn't make a lot of sense. When you're talking about 13,000 whales are migrating north, some can't be starving and others healthy. Because they're in the same ocean. Nobody gets, like if there's a limit to the amount of food, the same whale's not going to be eating all the time. He's not the bully of the pod, so to speak. What do we got done over here? That's really weird. The whales were already in poor shape last fall when they began their 12,000-mile migration to breeding. So last year, on their migratory run south, they're heading north now, because it's 12,000 miles. It takes a year, I guess. 12-mile migration to breeding. Duh. It's like swimming around the world every 2 years. They were in poor shape / emaciated. They had no surviving babies show up. They never had many babies, but they had no survivors made it to Baja, California. Bulging ribs and shoulder blades and vertebrae is visible even from the shore. Isn't that what we call emaciated? Yeah, they're extremely emaciated. So you're talking about the migratory 13,000 whales were emaciated last year, and last year they had 12 inches, or before that they had 12 inches. Before that started, they had 12 inches of blubber. So 14,000 have died, 52%. According to my numbers, I don't know. I'm just, the numbers I'm finding, that's the numbers I'm using. We've been doing this for a long time, right? So the numbers are pretty established for at least the last 14 years for us. Grey whale die-off fear as starving whales migrate north. But, according to them, in the future, 30 years following the discharge of radioactive water into the ocean, then you might see some problems. No, it's not just the grey whales, right? You got, on top of an unusual mortality event for humpback whales, you got 7,000 more identified from photos by artificial intelligence that are also missing. And so now we're talking 2 species, but we have unusual mortality events for just about all the species. And like if you find 1,000 dead whales, they assume there's 10,000, right? Or 9,000 you didn't find. That's the consensus per se. Because not all whales are found. Most of them sink to the ocean and become habitats, right? But it doesn't matter because there's not much to live in them anymore. Post-Fukushima, they don't really break down the way they used to at all. It takes a couple of more decades, or it might never happen. Who knows? There's not much oxygen down deep in a lot of these places, right? And so if something you don't eat them. So you had 1,000 covert beak whales just a few years back in of all places, United Kingdom, where they don't belong. And they're offshore deep divers, so people are not really, it's a very difficult animal to study because it can stay down for so long. And no one knows, they don't have the technology over the years to study them, right? So you had 1,000 of them showed up in different stages of decomposition, severely emaciated was the consensus of all the stories, because we cover all of this all the time. You have unusual mortality events for killer whales. For the first number of years after Fukushima, they had no surviving babies. This was but we're regularly seen in emaciated killer whales. Just recently, the last show we done was one and with rib cages sticking out, for goodness sakes. The peanut head, it's undeniable emaciation. And they admitted that it was in very bad shape, hadn't feed for a long time. Something that is an apex predator. Right, can eat 300 different plus species. Then you have the pilot whales showing up by the herds of them running up on beaches post-Fukushima. All of this, right, is a post-Fukushima phenomenon. Now, during the nuclear testing, we were seeing whales dying in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. But you got to realize how many nuclear weapons and how big some of these were. Like just a Castle Bravo nuclear weapon was equal to 1,000 Nagasaki bombs going off at the same time. And that the Soviet Union's biggest bomb that they acknowledged they set off, 50 megatons, was equal to 4,000 Nagasaki, Hiroshima type bombs going off at one time. Well, Nagasaki, because it was plutonium bombs. The first bomb, the Hiroshima bomb, was a uranium bomb. After that, pretty well everything was a plutonium bomb anyway. And then you get the thermonuclear bombs. I mean, they were blowing windows. They were 700 miles away. Imagine a radioactive fallout from that monster. 3,800. Imagine two countries firing 1,900 nuclear weapons, Nagasaki, Hiroshima-sized bombs at each other, because that's what happened in the same area, within 700-mile area. 700 miles just wrecked everything. Bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible from shore. We've covered, and I have a playlist. You want to take a real dark dive, I got a playlist. Just go into the playlist. Mass species die-off. Click on, at the bottom, I have a view, a full playlist. And start perusing that stuff for a couple of weeks. You'll get the picture. Emaciation is the key word for all species. That's the... A tourist asked me yesterday, what's my prognosis for whales, 10 years, or anything? No whales. There won't be any whales. The gray whales will be gone 2 years, tops. And whatever is left at that point, they won't be able to deny it because people will be taking pictures of these freaks, whales, and unless the media doesn't report on it, which is, they could do that. Social media, see, because people will see it on the beach and post pictures. AI can stop them from being prominent now, right? With several species facing the threat of extinction, we already got an extinction event. I mean, when you see headlines like the gray whale die-off feared as starving whales migrate north, and then they tell you that on the way down south, last year, severe emaciation. But whoever wrote this story is just a pain in the arse. With several species facing the threat of extinction, humanity's impact on nature has been more severe than imagined. They're telling a story about what's happening, but they're pretending it's 30 years down the road. It's pretty clever. Radioactive contaminants in the ocean. You covered the whole planet in the first, all the different models from the different universities and government agencies worldwide have a consensus that the radioactive fallout covered the entire planet. Typically 20 days to 30 days is, not many projections are outside of 30 days. Right, the consensus is the whole planet was efficiently irradiated permanently in 20 to 30 days. Right, even the conservative medias and universities has the same consensus. Back then, they didn't have their cover story nailed down. They sure got it nailed down since 2023, since August of 2023. They said no nuclear meltdowns. What nuclear meltdown? I don't see no nuclear meltdown. The problem is you can't kick it under carpet or something, right? They would. We're there now. It's too late, but just for the rest of the show, I want to be able to import a bunch of different institutions. That's April the 7th. That's not even a full month. The entire planet covered in radioactive fallout. Whenever you see these maps, typically they're just different types of isotopes, right? This was a cesium-137 radioactive fallout. Now, carbon doesn't make plumes like that. There's nothing else on the planet. Dust doesn't make plumes like this. Just nuclear industry makes plumes like this. So everything that you see covered on with these are world maps, you're talking about huge numbers per cubic meter of air and disposition radioactive fallout on the ground per square meter. This was 1 million atoms per square meter on the ground. So everything you see covered in day 20, which is March the 31st up there, day 20, it's really crazy how this industry has managed to be so secretive for so long, right? It's very complicated, and they keep complicating, keep changing. Like they'll change it from rad to sieverts, to millisieverts, to microsieverts, to unisieverts, instead of talking about physical atoms. So what you're looking at is a model from the French government based on 30 days when it finishes. 10 million atoms of cesium pre-Fukushima level, so it could be 30 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. So what happens with all these plume models is you got gammas, and this is a gamma, and then you got alphas and betas and neutrons. So you got gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas. Right? So you got different types of isotopes, and that's what these colors mean. So you get the whole planet full of gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas. It's everywhere. And like cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second. And so if it crosses the path, it's still going to go on its path as best it can. It can be the path, and I was doing it almost at the speed of light. And this is what's freaky about this technology, the radioactive fallout. This is another attribute. It's not just 2 billion times more toxic. It's another effect. There's gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas, and I'll get to it. So think of snowflakes. Think of a snowstorm. Think of this model as a snowstorm. It starts in Japan, and then 30 days the whole planet is a snowstorm. The snow never melts, never goes away, and it never stops snowing. And after 30 days, the planet is absolutely in saturation mode from the surface to the upper troposphere. But it's still coming out heavy for many years. It's absorbed into everything. And it pulses energy 600 feet every second, almost at the speed of light. And it's gamma. We'll just round it off, gamma. So it's cesium-137, but it's gamma. And what happens is the alphas, the neutrons, and betas, and gammas don't mingle. They don't mingle. And so when they hit each other, they change direction. Both of them are traveling almost at the speed of light, this energy. Now, gas, oil, and coal emissions don't have those attributes. And we've been releasing this into the environment for 80-something years right now, heavily. Right, the Manhattan Project onward. And what this is, when it hits each other and it changes direction, that's known as an X-ray. But in this capacity, because there's so much of it, uranium, plutonium, americium, neptunium, strontium, gammas, alphas, neutrons, betas. And when they're hitting each other almost at the speed of light, they're all changing direction. That's known as a braking effect, Bromson lung / X-ray. And so you're talking about full body X-rays for all the metals, all your forests, all your topsoil, everything is getting brutal and much deeper, of course. The root system is getting wrecked. You're killing the fungus and the bacteria in the root system, which is the the biomass, breaks down foliage and the litter and everything in the forest, right? So all of this species, but it needs water, and in order to make everything work, and that's easy because the fungus and the bacteria is comfortable in the water, right? And then all the biota will work around this. And that breaks down everything in your forest, your meadows. That's your ecosystem. But you're like Chernobyl, you killed most. This is why you've seen flash floods, because you killed the bacteria, the fungus, with the radioactive fallout from the gammas, the neutrons, the betas, the alphas, the X-rays. Full body X-rays for everything, including the biota, right? And so the foliage and litter doesn't break down anymore, and the ground is tender dry because you got rid of the fungus and the bacteria in the root system. Roots can't function anymore. And so the plants can live for a long time in these droughts, but this is a man-made drought. This is a permanent million-year drought. And so you can easily predict back when it happened, because there was so much of it, that the whole planet at some point wouldn't be able to soak up water. And so the water doesn't perspire like it normally would in the summertime. There'd be all kinds of morning dew in the forest, right, for instance. And you see spider webs everywhere. They would stand out because of the morning dew, right? And I used to look for them, obviously. You can see which insects are in that area. Check your spider webs wherever you do. And then you get a good handle right away on what species are flopping around out there. And now you can't find, there used to be 500,000 spider webs per acre, so it was easy to check. Now there's no spider webs because they can't tie on to the branches and everything, because that's where all the radiation goes, to the tips of the branches. So it disrupts the whole bottom of the food chain, the most important facet of the food chain, which feeds all the fish and all the frogs and all the little animals, little small animals, and it feeds the migratory insect-eating bird species that were just incredible, right? They have incredible millions of these migratory animals. So a couple of years ago, we had 192 species showing up dead over a long stretch. These were the migratory insect-eating small birds. They were just landing in communities, and they were all over the place. It was big news. They had starved to death. They had no body mass. They had no fat, no muscle. They literally ate everything in their body, and then they fell out of the sky from starvation. They didn't find their migratory food. The food chain got broken. And it got broken because this stuff is not going to go away. Neither will the stuff from 80 years ago. It's not going away. And the stuff from the day after that and the day after that is never going to go away. And you're always adding more every day for 80 years. You never stop releasing it into the environment on top of that. See, but this was a pulse event, covered the entire planet. We'll get there. And soil. So what they're talking about is what has already happened, but incredibly. So this is an unusual story. We don't really get a lot of apologists come out writing these fantasies. Oh, 30 years down the road. Like, this industry is so out of touch. It doesn't. Most of the people working in it are very dysfunctional. A lot of them are functional savants, so to speak, functional autism. And so they hire these people because they'll go to university, multiple degrees, but they don't know how to go look for a job. And so the university's always keeping an eye out for these, and they'll shuffle them off to the military-industrial complex, and they'll get them to crack sophisticated codes because these people are very socially awkward, and they have borderline autism because of all the poisoning going on with the radiation. The first studies you're doing after a nuclear accident is autism and Down syndrome. What does that tell you? And a surge in technological innovation. They're expecting it. So all of these things they're talking about are not going to come to fruition because we're already at critical mass for the species. We got all the emaciated animals, seals and sea lions and whales, the big animals on top of that, like 60, 70, 80, 90-foot animals emaciated. Doesn't sink in, then what does? With advancements in genetic engineering. So they're talking about the fantasy that would happen in 30 years where they would reconstruct the animal kingdom the best they could with the material, and then use the material and live in that material and learn off this and just Welcome to the nuclear age. Kind of like James' video tonight, actually. You can't escape. I'll play for you at the end of it. It's awesome. And radioactive experimentation technology. New hope has risen from the ruins of the disaster. New hope. We hear that every other day, new hope. I mean, whoever wrote the story was clearly deeply involved with the nuclear industry. You can't write those types of stories without being very in tune to how things have played out. You've really got to that's their job, to be a scumbag, and they're happy with that. They can live with that, right? And they embraced it or something. And the story just keeps going on and on and on. It is on this land once heavily damaged that a remarkable fusion of buildings, you got to use the word fusion, of building technology, genetic engineering, and nature has taken place. Genetic engineer and nature are not supposed to be in the same sentence. It is on this land once blah, blah, blah. Scientists, this is the scariest thing. Hello, I'm a scientist. That's the scariest thing somebody can say to you. It's on this land once heavily damaged that a remarkable fusion, there you go again. I really liked that one for some reason. I kept clicking. It is on this land once heavily damaged, yeah. Scientists thought breakthroughs in gene transference, breakthroughs where there are mutations, right? Where they're like Spider-Man or the Hulk, right? Yeah, they're immune to it. They're like the Wolverine. They're immune to radiation. That's what you're talking about. Well, just gene little modification here and there, and they'll be immune to it. And then we got sheep that are used to radiation, right? Problem fixed. What do you want? A few birds? I'll get you a few birds that change their genes. They'll be immune to the radiation, Dana. It actually never worked. But these Frankenstein creators are not likely to give up anytime soon. To absorb and transform radioactive elements, thus reducing environmental contamination. So they're using all of these plants. Plants will suck up the radiation. But because if you go in their little compartmentalized little world, is isolated to an area around Fukushima. Every fuel pool on the planet in 30 days does this. And there's 1,000 fuel pools out there. This model is not based on big numbers. It's just there's so many atoms in a gram, right? So a gram of cesium-137, say there's 88 curies. And a curie is 37 billion atoms. So you're going to multiply 88 by 37 billion to get the atoms in a gram. And so if you cook off 10 pounds, and they've done that a lot in Australia, the British government, right? They cooked off around 700 dirty bombs. And everybody's like, well, there's never been a dirty bomb. But yeah, well, the British cooked off almost 700 of them in Australia. One of them was 46 kilograms of plutonium. And then scientists, their jobs were to go out and sniff out how far the heavy plutonium fell. I was like, holy shit, you screwed up. I get that job. And they were incredibly sick as they got older, right? And their friends were dying. And yeah, our job was to figure out where the worst plume, stuck out. So they done 700 dirty bombs. 700 dirty bombs. The disgusting British government. The nuclear industry. Man, what the nuclear industry's done. They had 800 women, pregnant women, and they were offered to participate in this study. And the study was going to give them a shot of vitamins. Vitamins, right? But they call it vitamins. Or they can drink a glass, looks like orange juice, and it's full of vitamins. And the vitamins were plutonium and uranium-235. And even when the babies were stillborn or they died a month or a week or a year later, after the funeral, they would dig the baby back up and ship it off to Los Alamos National Laboratory where they would ash it. And then they would sniff the ashes for the plutonium. And ashing means they incinerated the baby. So they stole the baby. The whole story is absurd with the nuclear industry. It's scary because you see this absolute heartlessness of the industry. It's over and over. They took all these kids, Quaker Oats. They had radioactive Quaker Oats. Quaker Oats participated in it too, willingly. Everybody ate Quaker Oats when they were young, probably did. So they took all of these kids that were damaged from the radioactive fallout from the open nuclear testing, and they fed them radioactive oatmeal. I mean, how heartless you got to be to start doing stuff like that? What kind of freak are you when you do stuff like that? The nuclear industry, boy, is just full of this stuff. To absorb and transform radioactive elements reduced environmental contamination. So they're saying they could clean up Fukushima after it does this, covers the whole planet. But Fukushima would be okay, because they're going to have plants that are engineered, and then you can take the plants and build houses with it. Dana? You think I'm kidding, don't you? And they just said, the sick fantasy, they're probably going to get hired by UN real soon, whoever wrote it. They're definitely going to get a job with UN. Reducing environmental contamination, Dennis. It was only Fukushima. That's how... And they put so much effort and time and energy into telling a lie. And the giant plants serve not only as a natural purifier, but also as shelters for post-disaster life and recovery. Because living back in the nuclear wasteland is a big normal. Hiroshima and Nagasaki rebuilt the cities. Fukushima, like, we're not moving them no more. Look what they done back to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They just rebuilt the city on a nuclear bomb. This is the most insane industry conceivable. It's absurd. With these ecological, now they're ecological megastructures built out of radioactive plants that were genetically engineered to suck up the radiation, are spacious living areas, efficient laboratories, of course, efficient. Oh, excuse me. Well, look at you, big shot. You're efficient. In these natural sanctuaries, people can conduct scientific research, explore further environmental restoration technologies, and rediscover ways of harmoniously coexistence with nature. What nature? The bio-geoengineered when you create it in a nuclear wasteland. Let's all sacrifice. Let's all send at least one of our kids to Fukushima. How about that? And they can do whatever they want, as long as they leave the rest of us alone. Would that make them happy? Would that make the nuclear industry happy? The nuclear industry would love that. Then all their kids get a permanent job. These novel plants have formed a unique ecosystem for the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant known as the radiation biosphere. Yes, folks, you heard it here first. Radiation biosphere. Somebody's insane. I bet you Rod Adams was coaching this, whoever wrote this story. You really got to understand the nuances of what happened to write a story like this. You got to be a sicko. You got to be like way out of any kind of... Like if you met this person in a coffee shop, like you can go ahead of me, man. It's okay, buddy. Nice suit. I think, $5,000. Here, plants and wildlife depend on each other. There's no wildlife. What wildlife? 30 years from now, it'll be like a picture of the wildlife will be like a Picasso. Scientists have established a range of research facilities and living quarters within this biosphere, in the nuclear wasteland, where environmental explorations. You already got your gear on? You better seal that helmet and gloves. Monitoring occurs in harmony with nature, with the genetically engineered creatures. Whoever wrote this story is a sick puppy, man. They should be in jail. Is anybody sick enough to write something like this should be in jail for the rest of their lives. Composing a magnificent symphony of life that they created in the nuclear wasteland. Everybody got a pet duck? After decades of growth and evolutions, and every summer they all get together and let their duckies swim down the rivers. And then they go down and catch their duckies. You think some lie, don't you? He forgot to put it in the story, but it's true. I can read between the lines. At the end of their life cycles, they undergo a special process that solidifies their structure, transforming them in durable building materials. Calcified plants are carefully crafted into various types of structures. calcified plants. So they're just going to suck up the radiation in these plants and build more skyscrapers with their plants, including homes. And the buildings are not only places for human habitation, but also basically the only safe places in the buildings they're talking about. The post-Fukushima era environment. Post-Fukushima is forever. You're never going to get back what you put into the environment, And there's like a visible snowstorm covers the whole planet. It never stops snowing. That's coming out of Japan's snowstorm. It never stops snowing. And within 30 days, the whole planet is impossible not to be getting full body X-rays and be consuming this, breathing it, drinking it. Particularly anything that lives outdoors is even worse. We're at the top of the food chain. We're not escaping it. Canada's beefing up their radio imaging technology because there's a lot more sickness and cancers post-Fukushima, Dana. And then these pictures. This is what it's going to like in 2041. This is what Fukushima will look like. These people should be definitely sacrificed, and then they can study their brains to make sure we don't create any other people like this. It's eloquent. It's beautiful, Dana. It's going to be perfect. You got to send your kid there, man. They're going to love it. Nuclear dawn or delayed dream. The strategic case for Sizewell C in a carbon-constrained economy. Harrison Brooks. I'm your AI UK business scout. He's got a great name, Harrison Brooks. They're saying he's AI, I guess. This is what we're up against now. The United Kingdom, Sizewell C nuclear plant stands as a pivotal crossroad with a potential price tag of $40 billion. It's obviously going to be a lot more than that. It's the largest single infrastructure project in Britain's history. Booyah! It's the largest single infrastructure project in Britain's history. Here's a little peek at it. The one thing about a nuclear plant is wherever there's a nuclear plant, farms can't be too far away. How are they going to have a nuclear renaissance without farms? How does that work? So if we get rid of all the farms, we can kill the nuclear industry. They have no incentive anymore. It is the largest single infrastructure project in Britain's history. I think it's the world's history, isn't it? For like an actual project, $40 billion project. And the cornerstone to the government's net zero ambition. Net zero was a paper written by Miles Allen, who's got a cushy job now as a professor at Cambridge. And so United Nations grabbed that paper and said, perfect. Because it used to be just blame for your tin cans, your pop bottles, and your cardboard. Now they got net zero, climate change. So like if you get pulled over by the cops for speeding or something stupid, just tell them because of climate change. And they can't charge you. That's the fact. That's as true as I'm sitting here right now. And the cornerstone of the government's net zero ambition. So like Miles Allen should be apologizing every day, putting out a video on YouTube. I'm sorry, I didn't realize if I gave it to UN, they're going to weaponize it against your planet. Yet its fate hinges on a final investment decision expected by July the 21st, and a deadline that could make or break its viability. I can't see, this industry gets everything it wants. And so this has been going on for quite a few years. Just they came up with all, like China was, oh yeah, well you can own a bunch of Britain nuclear plants you want, just put the money in there. A couple years later, like, sorry, we can't have foreign people. We're going to give you back some money, and you can get lost. What a scumbaggery thing they done. It's Britain, Dana. It's the Britain government. What do you expect? This is a moment of high stakes and high rewards for the stock market. He chanced to back a transformative low carbon. Again, you got to use these. Like, each reactor needs 6,500 one-ton pickup trucks of water with 2,000 pounds of water, 1,000 liters, and they got to dump that in 24 hours. Every day, 6.5 million one-ton pickup trucks has to dump water into each reactor. And that's why each nuclear plant has a dedicated gas oil and coal plant, 2 of them, to power that site. They can get rid of nuclear, just take the gas and oil plants, and they're equal to more megawatts than the nuclear is. So they show you this picture here, which is artificial intelligence. Like some kid done this one. It's real pretty looking, eh? This was another one of them. Of the models. This is what it's going to look like. Why is it always surrounded by farms, though? Because every picture you look up, you're going to see this is Hinkley Point. And Hinkley Point, like every other nuclear plant worldwide, is surrounded by farms. Total coincidence. This is Sizewell. This is the biggest construction job on the planet right now. They poured enough concrete cement to build a sidewalk all the way to Rome. And nothing but the best, though. And it's not cheap concrete. It's good stuff. It's good. Nothing with spirit. So why is every nuclear power plant, except for a few of them, surrounded by farms? Because the tall, skinny stacks are the fuel pools, and the fuel pools are still splitting atoms. And so if you had special glasses and you were flying by, this is what you would see. In fact, I would imagine you wouldn't be able to see the plant because of the radioactive fallout from the fuel pools. The older the plant, the more fuel pools it has. The more fuel pool it has, the more splitting atoms it has going on. 17 years to build this site. It's on a site that's been there for, another nuclear plant was there for 60 years. And look at all the farms in the background. In fact, if you get a satellite picture of Sellafield, which used to be Windscale, they changed the name after what they've done, to Sellafield to try to hide the crimes against humanity they committed. There's still 8 million liters a day going into the Atlantic Ocean from a plutonium mixed oxide number 4 reactor that melted in 1957. They changed it back a transformative low carbon. Like, how can you look at this and call it low carbon? Would you like to see their electricity bill for one day? And this is not the full site. This is nothing. Low carbon. And then the story went nutty on me. It went, Post-Fukushima. UK government has framed this as a dual imperative, energy security and a post-Fukushima. Because this is an AI story, remember that? It was written automatically and posted automatically, I would imagine. They're just funning with us. And this is what the rest of the story looks like. Post-Fukushima. 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 Fukushima. Post-Fukushima. But there's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide doing this every day. That makes you more confident when you go to the supermarket a bit. But that's the appropriate ending to the story was post-Fukushima over and over and over and over and over. Because clearly this was given a command to prioritize post-Fukushima in the AI story, right? Never stops with this industry, but that's a new one. I haven't seen that one before, I don't think. I loved it. This is one of my favorite pictures ever. This is the Stoic International Atomic Energy Agency, and clearly they're coming out of Reactor 4. Only problem is, Reactor 4 is supposed to be a 190 feet tall, 19-story building. I know what you're saying. That's probably 190 stories, dear Dana, if you're pro-nuclear. But you'll be wrong. See, he's not building. Top of the building's not there. The top of the building's right above his head there. You can see the hole. Let me just, I gotta zoom in on that. Wait, hang on. There's some fancy stuff coming up. Hold your breath. Oh, the other one. Post-Fukushima. Have I got something that zooms in on that, I wonder? Yeah, there's a bit better. So that's the bottom. The reactors and the fuel pools were at the top of reactor 4. That's reactor 4. So do you think this spot here is a 190 feet tall, 19-story building? If you don't think that's 19 stories, 190 feet, 65 meters in the air, and you are a fearmonger like me. Welcome, baby. It's good to be a fearmonger when it comes to the nuclear industry and Fukushima in particular. And what exactly is a paper suit going to do with a nuclear meltdown for you, Dana? That's a great question. According to TEPCO, they burn 7,000 paper suits every day in 2 big incinerators they have there. Can an incinerator destroy the radioactive material, Dana? No. What does it do? Well, it releases it back into the environment. Will you stop with all the questions? I got to shout it out for Krieg's sakes. Always demanding. This is crazy. Pretending they're coming out of reactor 4. You can't go into a nuclear meltdown, even if you got like a 6-foot lead suit on. But if you get that close, then they probably got an extra $50 each for doing that, right? The guy in the tattoos told him, like, you go over, stand over there and then walk towards us and look important. That's a death sentence right there. And I mean, clearly those boots don't belong on Buddy in the middle there. What do you think those filters can do for you at a nuclear meltdown? You're talking about multiple sievert dose right there. Like they're stood on steel plates. These are 8 feet wide and 16 feet long steel plates. And so they originally went in with remote control bulldozers. And it bulldozed the fuel that was ejected out of the buildings onto the ground. And then they came in with cement trucks with a long boom on them. And they dumped cement over everything. Then they put steel plates there. And then they put pavement. And then concrete, and then steel plates, and then pavement, and steel plates. And that's probably what we're looking at right there. Because until the homeless stopped dropping dead right away, they would just put more steel plates and cement and pavement, see? Because if you had a nuclear scientist and you took him to a paper suit, he'd actually tear your head right off your shoulders trying to get away. You'd be, no, you can't take me there, it's Fukushima. And you're like 100 miles away, you'd be screaming. You'd be scratching your eyes. You're trying to get out of the car. Because why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms? It's because that's where a lot of the radioactive fallout is landing right away. And they got to keep those numbers down. They can't have big numbers. If I show up at a Geiger count and get a big number, it's over for the industry, right? Big controversies. The tides of Fukushima navigating a nuclear disaster and the controversy over water release. The controversy. Like, no, not another story about water. Please, Dana, no. There's nothing I can do about it. That's the story that came out. Not my fault. I don't pick the stories. Accumulation of radionuclides by plants is a monitoring system. So there's zero possibility it can appreciate that was a bad idea to have a farm right by a nuclear plant. They got studies saying that the plants accumulate radiation by nuclear plants. So why would you have every nuclear plant surrounded by farms? It seemed like a good joke at the time, didn't it? It was supposed to be just a one-off, but the boys at the top of the food chain really liked it. The Fukushima nuclear power station made it to one of the world's top 25 nuclear power stations. It was the second or the first biggest combined 6 reactors site on the planet when it melted down. Each reactor is massive, and at the top of the buildings were decades of reactor cores stored in the fuel pools. There's 4 buildings are missing those fuel pools. Each fuel pool, there was 8 altogether, 2 at the top of each building. It was estimated to be around 8 reactor cores at the top of each building and 1 in a reactor. If it wasn't in a reactor, then that was in the fuel pool, so there would have been 9, like reactor 4. But also we know reactor 4 had old fuel and new fuel added in, because it had been under maintenance for quite a while, so they were getting ready to restart it soon. So it was already loading up fuel. Running approximately 461 miles north of Tokyo is actually, you get different numbers all the time. 170, 240 kilometers, 170 miles. Well, Tokyo's pretty big, right? Tokyo's 36 million people, metropolitan Tokyo. So it depends on what you're saying, whether it was like downtown Tokyo or on the outskirts of Tokyo. There's a big difference. But not 461 mile type numbers. It was less than half of that. So they got that wrong. Is that more AI writing stories, I wonder? Running approximately 400, that's a really puzzling one. Let's go. Remains a key issue in global discussions regarding environmental conservation. Nuclear industry doesn't want any environment because then there's nothing to complain about. Why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms typically? As far, like if you're in a satellite pictures, as far as you can see. Radioactive pollutants. Well, every nuclear power plant's fuel pool is wrecking millions and millions and millions of people each year. See, if you get a single one of these atoms, each green thing you see there like a snowflake is radioactive. Conceive it as because the fuel pools have no containment, they're splitting atoms. So the more fuel in the pool, the more atoms are coming out of each site. Now the sites are 40, 50, 60 years old. So they're stuffed with fuel, decades of reactor cores. And so say there's 8 reactor cores at the top of the building and 2 fuel pools. That's 8 reactor cores with no containment that are splitting atoms forever into the environment. That's the reason we talk about, well, you can't do nothing. What are you going to do with the nuclear waste? Well, most people perceive it as being dangerous being in proximity. The problem is it doesn't matter where you're on the planet, the radioactive fallout will find you. It doesn't matter which species you are. If you're any of the 8 million species, you're already in catastrophic mode. Tsunami that swept through the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant, the tsunami went right through the site. And so the common spent fuel pool, the original pictures, and I've done a presentation on 736 mystery pictures that were released in 2020. I'm the only person on the planet, as far as I know, that covered it. So if you can see radiation, it would look 100,000 times worse than this. See the 2 tall skinny stacks back there? 3 of them. They're releasing radiation directly into the environment from the fuel pools. So think about the fuel pool, like a reactor core, there's many of them in the fuel pool. Each reactor core is splitting atoms to boil water to power 1 million homes and businesses. Like the numbers, I don't think we have a number that can tell you how many atoms we're talking about. Just in one day, 1 reactor fuel pool, if you only have 1 reactor core in a fuel pool, each day it's releasing more atoms than all the grains of sands and all the beaches on the planet. Because think about how many atoms you got to split to boil a glass of water, and how many atoms you got to split to boil a glass of water for 1 million people. And then, the energy used for each person each day is created by splitting atoms, because that's what it does naturally. But once you take it out and put it in the fuel pool, it doesn't stop doing that. Right? It's just not under enormous, like 1,000 pounds per square inch and huge temperatures per se, but it's very hot because it boils. Each fuel pool is boiling off 120,000 liters a day into the environment. Each liter is going to have hundreds and hundreds of billions of trillions atoms. Because that's what we're talking about, to boil glasses of water. And so, say the reactor ran for, say you had 100 tons, and the reactor ran for 6,000 years. And when you took the fuel out of the reactor, it still weighs 100 tons. Because it's a perpetual machine. It just makes these evil little entities known as atoms. The atom gets in your body attacks the white blood cells for the rest of your life, which is typically until it builds a sarcophagus around it with white blood cells. So if you get an atom in your body, you can put 200 million on the head of a needle, you can't see it. But if you get one of them in your body, It's pulsing energy at the speed of light. It's damaging chromosomes, DNA, and cells. Your body got to repair that every second. It can't keep up with that. It attacks the source every second. Can't keep up with that. And so eventually the white blood cells, which is displacing your red blood cells, which carry oxygen nutrition for every species. So you can see, like, eventually your immune system, because your body accumulating so much, because there's so much, and this doesn't do it justice. This depiction doesn't do it justice. I made these pictures in desperation to help articulate what I'm doing right now. Paralyzing the cooling system of the plant, leading to the reactor meltdown of Unit 1, 2, and 3. So what I do here, a lot of the things I do here is how do I convey the information so you can make informed decisions based on your own extrapolation. Right? And so if you're able to appreciate the story tonight, the madness, it's madness trying to tell these. It'll drive you nuts. I was out looking for whales for 3.5, 4 hours. I was able to work welding underneath the truck for 2.5 hours. I drank water then for a full hour after that. Summer's coming. We're going to get summer in another week or two. That's what they say. At some point, summer's going to show up here late. Not unusual to wait till like the first week of September before summer actually shows up. And then it'll last till the end of October or something. November maybe. But sometimes, because Fukushima has changed everything, a hydrogen explosion. So the hydrogen explosion wasn't a hydrogen explosion. The explosions of the reactors. This is really simple to understand. Each reactor is around 1,000 pounds per square inch. I'm just going to find a picture for you so it makes sense. So each reactor is 1,000 pounds per square inch. And it loses water. Right, so it needs 1 million gallons a minute. It needs 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks a minute. It needs 6.5 million one-ton pickup trucks every 24 hours. So if it doesn't get 6.5 million one-ton pickup trucks in 24 hours, or 4,500 one-ton, imagine 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks driving past your front door every morning at enormous speeds, faster than anything we're used to. And each one of them dumps 1 ton of water into a reactor. It does that every minute, 1,440 minutes a day. So 1,440 times 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks. So it's 1,440 minutes in a day. Multiply that by 4,500 and 1 million gallons each minute for each reactor. That's how much water it needs. It doesn't get it. So now, because it's already at 1,000 pounds per square inch, is already at 700 degrees, it heats up because it's not getting 6.5 million one-ton pickup trucks of water every minute. And so the pressure now climbs up to 1,500 pounds per square inch and 1,800 pounds per square inch, and then 2,000 pounds per square inch, and it's 1,200, 1,400, 1,600 degrees because you got nothing to cool. You don't have 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks every minute to cool it. Imagine organizing 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks, and in 1 minute they got to each of them dump 2,200 pounds, 1,000 liters of water on a reactor and get it out of the way. Every minute, every 60 seconds. And 75 a second. Has to dump 1 ton of water onto the reactor, or it heats up. So when it heats up, it's not a hydrogen explosion, right? It heated up to multiple say 1,400 degrees, and the pressure increased because it can't contain the heat. And it's at 1,000 pounds per square inch. Now it's at 2,000, 2,500, and then they go boom. Right? Does that make sense? Does that make any sense? Does anything make any sense? So it's at 1,000 pounds per square inch. Now it was at 2,000 2 days later. And this is what happened 2 days later. It's not a hydrogen explosion. This was already at 1,000 pounds per square inch. It was already at 600 or 700 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. And what you're seeing in that video If you, just hang on now, I'm gonna zoom in. I'm gonna use some fancy technology here. Huh. I'm gonna do better than that. Hang on. No, that's not working very good for me. Let me try this again. The hard way. I didn't have it preloaded, so I really don't have any excuses. Right there. We'll stop right there. Okay, hang on. This is going to be great. All right. Winning. All right, so start this off again. So it heats up 1,000, 2,000 degrees, 2,500, 3,500. What the hell is that? Oh, it's got, it doesn't start. Doesn't start until, I got to chop that off. Right here. What's it doing? That's weird. My videos are not working? I've never seen that before. Oh, I gotta click this one. The window where I got it to. Alright, bear with me. Bonehead Dana. So you see the big heavy stuff. The plume now is the fuel pools getting exposed to air. They light up to 1,800 degrees right away. The big chunks falling back down are the fuel pools, remains of fuel pools, and the reactor core that was running. This is reactor Medusa. This is the plutonium mixed oxide reactor. It ejected the reactor cores and the fuel pools right out of the building. Now that wasn't a hydrogen explosion. That was you're putting too much air in your car tire, and your car tire finally blew up. And in this case, it was caused by already being at 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, already being at 700 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, couldn't get 450,000 or 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks a minute. It couldn't get, in 2 days, it didn't get its 13 million one-ton pickup trucks. So it cooked off, right? It just overheated, and BAM! It was all gone. It's all over now, but they're crying. And this was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, which typically cooked off several 100,000 times hotter than a normal reactor will cook off, like reactor 4 and reactor 1. Just hang on, I'm trying to get back on my spot here. All right, I'm there. Oh yeah. Oh, I got a picture of that Belgium. Let me bring that up for 1 second. The problem is, just hang on. I got to bring this puppy home here. Hang on. All right, here we go. So this is an emaciated killer whale in Belgium. It doesn't belong in Belgium. Never been there before. And it has the peanut head. You can see the rib cage. You can see like this is a killer whale that can eat 300 different species. So why is it emaciated? Well, one of my theories, besides the food chain being broken, is certain species will show up quicker because of the bioaccumulation of radiation. They can't uptake nutrition no more. So there is food there. We know that because they're still out there fishing, right? It's not plentiful, but this food is out there. So-called food, right, for the species. And so we're seeing this a lot, right? And we have connotations of being 1,000 atoms per kilogram of just cesium-137 projections in 2012, 2013, 2014. Right? There's a consensus on that. So when you get these kind of numbers in your body, you have leukemia. You can't uptake any nutrition because you're basically producing massive amounts of white blood cells because your bioaccumulation of radiation is destroying everything. Your body's reaction is to try to repair everything. It does that with white blood cells, right? But we see this in hospitals all the time. People go, "No, please, doctor, there's got to be something you can do." Well, there's radiation therapy. Yeah, I get a kickback, 25%, but hey, that's the way it is. Oh, God bless you, doctor. When can you kill me? Oh, yeah, we can start. You got $900,000. We got to keep you alive. We got to keep you on drip until we eat up $900,000 at the hospital. Because radio chemo, that's what they'll allow for it, radiation and chemo. And then we're going to just give it up because there ain't no way you're surviving that. But this is absurd. Killer whales. Oh, and same with the last show last week, emaciated in New Zealand. This one is in Belgium. There's other pictures, right, where it's side views. This is reactor 1 detonating. And that was an explosion caused by massive pressure and heat because the reactors didn't get 6.5 million one-ton pickup trucks, bore-rated water in a 24-hour period. So reactor 1 cooked off right away. Reactor 3, the plutonium mixed oxide reactor, was updated. So it took a bit more pressure, but it cooked off on the 12th. These weren't hydrogen explosions. That's the cover story. And releasing radioactive material. Releasing radioactivity into the atmosphere and surrounding areas. Being surrounded the whole planet in 19.5 days, 468 hours. Right? See that? That's the Norwegian Institute of Air Research. Why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms? Because that's the criteria. The best way to keep the local radiation around the site down is you have active farmland. It just makes it easier to poison you ultimately in the supermarkets. And it's legal. It's not illegal to poison you with radiation. Congress and Parliament don't have the authority to make it illegal to poison you with radiation. Only the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has that authority, and they can be replaced. So if they say, well, we're going to make it illegal, they're going to lose their job in the morning. The next guy will just, what's the word for it? Annul that. Experimentally determined translocations of 134 cesium in potatoes. What? Your food sucks up radiation then, huh? Yeah. They got millions of studies showing that the food sucks up the radiation, so, let's build all our nuclear plants in the middle of prime. They're good old boys club. They love you so much. They want to be your stockbroker. In other words, they're going to buy stocks wherever that supermarket is too in the pharmaceutical industries because they're going to be down crazy business. Permanent customers. Becoming the world's third largest. Like it's an insult because usually they'll say like Chernobyl's the worst. Graphite reactor, 2-year-old reactor, never had any fuel pools at the top of the building. It just had a small reactor core. It was catastrophic. They closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom, because it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine, right? 3,000 kilometers away. So how do you get all the radiation to go across Europe, not touch anything, and go to United Kingdom, Scotland, and close 9,400 farms over there, 3,000 kilometers away? But the site itself is surrounded by farms. They're not going to close that spot. It's all good, man. It's all good. The radiation got over there. It's got over to Britain. Don't worry about it. Fukushima is the worst. It's multiple reactors. Reactor 1, 2, and 3 suffer core damage. No. I showed you the videos. They ejected the reactor cores right out of the buildings. They burnt at fierce 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures till there was nothing left under the crying. Don't worry, I'll tell you 500 more times before the month's out. Because I'm a good guy. I'm busted up. So they only suffered some core damage. That's reactor 3/Medusa, and that's reactor 4. I know it doesn't look like it, but they're both 190 feet tall, and everything's perfect. You've seen the videos of the journalists. They make $1 million a year. saying, oh, no, we're like a banana, Dan. It's like a potato chip. Mom. They're down in their basement screaming right now, Mom, Dana's fear-mongering. Nuclear scientists all over the world are like, Mom, come down, Dana's fear-mongering again. Nuclear scientists. I had one comment, he said, you're a pain in the ass.
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be.
So this is 4 of the many, many journalists. The picture gets better once it plays it. 4 of the many journalists saying they're at the top of reactor 4 fuel pool. Each of these journalists are claiming they're at the top of that building. It'll look better when I click on the video. They're just a fraction of the media that done this, by the way. The United States has 70 identical reactors, so it's not hard to fake. I don't know if it's fake. I can't tell the difference personally, but what do you think?
Where I'm standing is on top of what used to be reactor building number 4. The whole of this building was blown apart by a huge explosion.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011.
Of the decommissioning work taking place here in Reactor 4.
At the end of our tour, we were checked for radiation exposure. In 4 hours, I received the equivalent of less than a chest x-ray.
1,500 highly radioactive fuel rods inside this pool. They've got to move them outside of this reactor.
So who's telling the truth, me or them? I wonder. Let me fix this. That's the wrong one. Better luck this time. Not that one. Not this one. Maybe this one. I can't. So is it these guys? Am I right that they can't be at the top of this building? Does that make sense? That they're lying? I got to question everything now because I created this video in 2013. So are they up here? That's the question. Are they, say, right here above this building right here? If they're up here, and maybe you can see it, but I can't see it. Because that's what they're telling you. That's CBS Seth Dorn. He's a senator's son. Big shot. This is BBC Rupert Winfield Hayes. A big shot. CNN Anna Karina. And this is ABC Cecilia Vega, which is Australia's biggest media. She's currently the press secretary, she's at the White House, journalist press secretary at the White House for ABC. She makes $900,000 a year, bless her little murderous heart. Unit 4, although shut down, why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms? That's a crazy critter question type shit. Also suffers structural damage. Reactor 4 suffers structural damage. Now what I showed you right behind me is Reactor 4. That's structural damage. That's not destroyed. No. Structural damage. Well, here's what it looked like originally coming up. That's 2013 behind me, when the journalists were on top of it. Not. This is what it looked like originally. So there wasn't a nuclear academic or nuclear scientist on the entire planet that looked at Reactor 4 or Reactor 3 behind me and said, oh yeah, that's a bit of paint, some scrap. Get out there with the broom tomorrow morning, clean things up. These are 190 foot, 19-story, 65-meter buildings that had 9 reactor cores in it. That's gone. And Reactor 3 had 9 reactor cores in it. That's gone. So long. Sayonara. And so the radioactive fallout has poisoned every species and every human on the planet many times over. And now we're seeing a emaciation of all the species. It's just, you know, we've been at this a long time, and we've so this is pictures from my research expedition behind me, and to your left is what it looked like in 2011. So I went up there for 6 years, from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, which is 27,000 islands, and they were silent. So instead of incredible diversity to your left, the species to your right is what I found. And so I went back for 5 more years to see if the species to your left recovered. That seemed like the thing to do at the time. And I used to stay out there for 4 to 5 months, and we have hundreds of thousands of pictures and videos, underwater videos. And the species to your left are, if you didn't get your pictures back then, you'll never get those pictures again, because the species to your left are gone. And they're gone because we got buried in radioactive fallout within 20 days. And that was a typical looking day on the ocean. So the species to your left, I could never land my Zodiac on a beach because there's so many species, right? So in 2019, that's what I looked like. And we got huge numbers on my Geiger counter in my house. I was on the West Coast. And that was after 6 years of research. And I realized I was being poisoned, and probably not from radioactive fallout, but from the nuclear industry. They were dossing me. They were putting my pictures of my home and my address up, and they were saying nasty stuff, trying to incite someone to come and kill me. I had a visitor today. I'm not going to tell you how I know that, but because I know they're out there. But I had a visitor when I was there looking for whales today. Show up at my house and left me a little signature. They were here. That was nice of them. Undeniable signature. A window I never have open was opened right up. Nothing was taken. What kind of burglar is that, I wonder? Someone come and had a look at me. Some organization. But there's a lot more to that story that it started yesterday, right? Expect 7,000 plus species in the tidal zone. There's nothing there. So there's a big incentive for the industry, not for this information not to be known by the general population, right? Because that's the end of the nuclear industry. And it'll be open season on nuclear companies and apologists if the truth comes out. What was interesting was the only story that acknowledged the die-offs, and I've done those expeditions for 6 years, was that not just the mussels, but it was cancer in mussels. Never heard tell that one before. An unprecedented mutation of cancer, allowing cancer to spread from one species to another like a virus. And that's why the species to your left disappeared, because they gave each other cancer. Not radioactive fallout, but cancer. So the species all pass cancer onto each other, and that's why the coastline is naked. Whoever come up with that story should get a Nobel Peace Prize. That was genius. But most population would never know stuff like that, right? Because that wasn't. But that was, they had to come up with some way to justify it to themselves. Well, it was a bird flu in overdrive. It was the avian influenza's youngest brother come out and he killed all those species to your left. They all got cancer and passed it on to each other. And that's why the coastline is naked. And I spent 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, 4 to 5 months a year on the ocean, because the species were there. Well, dire. They were there to your left. And now they're gone. They're not coming back. And so the thing is that when you take a healthy coastline, right? This is what the healthy coastline looked like in 2011. So if I went there with a plow or a backhoe or something, dug up all these species, put them in a truck, and truck drove them away, and the species left and right and down deeper would just fill up that prime real estate within probably a month. It would be pretty full. But over a year, it would just fill right up. And because the ocean itself, a glass of water, right, like a glass of water, would have 1 billion creatures in it. And the phytoplankton was 75 to 100 million of that glass of water, which is the basis of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestration chain. And then the rest of them were the larvae, the eggs, the sperm, the milk of all the species. It was a soup of life. And so the ocean this time of the year should be very milky for many months. And I used to be a commercial diver, and every summer you would have to suffer through the incredible soup of life when all the species were reproducing at the same time into the ocean. Just a big madness anyway. And then you had all the migratory species were on the move, and they were laying eggs all along the coastlines. And it was incredible, dirty looking water, but it was with a purpose, right? It was a soup of life. A glass of water was a soup of life. And today I looked down, and on the ocean floor I seen 2 dead halibut upside down. Took pictures. Probably show them tomorrow night, hopefully. And 2 dead bodies upside down in perfectly clear water. No matter where you're looking, you can see the ocean floor. Like, you should never be able to see that this time of the year. And it should be right where I'm to, 46 million migratory birds shitting in the ocean, shitting everywhere, eating all day long, feeding, raising their fledglings for the next couple of weeks. And when you pull out of here, there should be 150 to 200 million migratory seabirds. That's quite the spectacle, right? The biggest group would of storm petrels, which are dependent upon microscopic animals, the soup of life, are missing from Bacaloo Island here for many years now, for about 4 years, 5 years. And the cliffs would normally be stained for millions of years of generations, raising their fledglings there and pooping that whole time, see? So the cliffs would be stained from just millions of years of repeat staining and acid. And that's gone. So it's been going on about 5 years, 6 years. 5 years that I've been doing research on this coast. So 6 years on the west, 5 years here. And I don't give a shit what people say about me. They don't know nothing about me. They don't understand what I'm about. They don't appreciate the enormity of this issue. And I couldn't care less, right? I'm targeting policymakers, investors, and anybody that's looking for this information will find me eventually. I'm hid away really good, clearly. I got 16 people on my show. They've been doing for over a decade. 5 days a week, typically. And so there's no nonsense. There's no misrepresenting facts, because the idea is provide with documentation so you can make up your own mind. And there's a lot of documentation. There's an absurd amount of documentation for every facet. There's endless minutiae of details that you've got to absorb. And every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms, and we know that the food sucks up the radiation. It's a terrible industry. I'm still talking. I get it. Let's get out of here, I guess, at that time of the night. Why is every nuclear plant surrounded by farms? Why do they hate us so much? Why are they poisoning us in their food source directly? It's built into the equation, right? And this is another story that is so long. Like, just trying to cover the lie in one story could take an hour to tell so many lies. You can't keep up with it. You can't challenge every lie. The tides of navigating a nuclear disaster and the controversy over the water release, that's like a 60 screen captures to get through that story. 6 years since the tsunami triggered the meltdown, it was estimated about 600 tons of radioactive fuel could have escaped, which is 1 point, depending if you're, well, in Japan because it's metric, but some countries will just be in standard tones, right? So 600 ton, over 1 million pounds, right? 1,200 pounds. But if you look at each building was around 6 million pounds. Right, so each building had around 3,450 assemblies. Each assembly is 12 feet long, or each fuel rod is 12 feet long and weighs 18 pounds. So each assembly is basically 1,800 pounds of fuel rods. Right, so each reactor could easily hold a capacity of 3,450 assemblies, and it's not uncommon for them to have double, triple that capacity. Right, quite a few reactors in the United States has that, almost all of them, because they don't have a repository in Japan or anywhere else worldwide. This is where they're storing the majority of the fuel. The so-called cast is used, but it's for very old fuel, many, many decades old. And they change out a large chunk of their fuel every 14 months. So you're looking at around 24 million pounds lost at Fukushima, not 1.2 million. The advanced liquid processing system, same as the Riva system, was exactly the same, the French Riva system, have never been used. They were never turned on because you can never change the filter. After 20 minutes, you're talking about multiple sieverts per liter of just that they acknowledge just better. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose for a human. So the fuel filter in 1 hour would be thousands of sieverts. So you even got a lead suit on, you still can't get near it on a forklift to change it, right? And that the stuff that's coming out after 10 minutes, the stuff that's coming out the other side of the filter is more radioactive than the stuff that was going into the filter because you're collecting fuel particulates in the filter. So you're going to have a meltdown in the filter. You're going to have a criticality event in the filter because you can't separate gammas, alphas, neutrons, and betas because all atoms are the same size. And because this process has never been worked out, and TEPCO, which is not a decommission authority, has zero likelihood of coming up with some Einstein stuff, okay? Everybody else would be using the same technology if it actually existed. It wouldn't be just Fukushima. And it never stops with these people. They tell so many lies that if I sit here tonight and try to challenge just all the lies in this story, we're going to be here for at least another hour. And I had a long fucking day, excuse the language. I had a great day, but it solved a lot of issues, right? Got to look for whales and everything else. But it was a rough day. I just busted up. And so when I'm busted up, I got a tendency to be a little bit goofy. Because my brain is like, go to bed, shithead. Stop doing this. Just go to bed, Dana. And you can't keep up with every lie. You can't challenge every lie. And into the ocean without significant adverse effects. They can't quantify the assertion because my research expeditions for 6 years and the documentation that we went on, which was already well recognized, the damage from the radioactive fallout to the species, like we didn't go out there until we were like, oh shit, we gotta go out and have a look. And because I was an ex-commercial diver, I was familiar with all the species, so I was compelled, right? And to our absolute horror, it's an extinction event. Now that is now where all the whales are emaciated. Anyway, we're going to give it up here. Let me just run through. I'm not going to talk, but we'll just go through all the other stuff because I'm just flashing past a lot of stuff on that. You can probably stop it later and watch it if you really. You can go read the article, I guess. Reputational damage, my favorite. Treated water. Although Japan, international atomic. I can't challenge every one of these lies tonight, and I apologize. And maybe I should come back tomorrow night and finish challenging every one of these lies. Because look how many lies are in just this one story that you have to address. And we have the ability to address every one of these lies. That's the most regretful thing I think I've ever said. It's the most pathetic thing I've ever heard. Why is every nuclear power plant surrounded by farms? Because they love you so much. I got one more story I got to cover. That's the last story. Saturday Night Live had a politician politician, had a superstar on their show, and it was an exploding whale, which is very bad, very terrible taste, because the grey whales are emaciated, the entire migratory, and the humpbacks, and many of the other species. During last fall's southbound migration, they were already emaciated. Not a single calf was spotted. In other words, all the calves from 2023 died on the 2024 southerly migratory run. Right? And so now they're headed north this year. And so they had 80 babies. None of them were healthy. And none of them, the mothers, are able to produce milk because they're emaciated. So they're not going to make it. During last fall's southbound migration, not a single calf was spotted, a phenomenon never before reported in the 40-year history of the group's census. They were emaciated. The migratory animals are all emaciated. Bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shoreline. And I was trying to get pictures today, and I was going to send a drone out if I can spot a whale, because I desperately got, once we get the parts fixed, and Dana and Sana shipped $50 to me last night to help you. Bless your heart, my friend. You've already done way too much, trust me. And Colette donated another 25, and we had 140 from last week put aside. And so we're like halfway there already. It's only Tuesday. So by Thursday, maybe Friday, we should have things fixed and put it back together, and I should be turn the key, and I got everything hooked up. What a nightmare. And we're hoping the boat is going to be running. That boat shouldn't be on the ocean ever again, because that motor's been in Alaska 6 times. It's done multiple years of research expeditions down here. Before that, the motor was used as a search and rescue motor. So who knows how much abuse it already took. I've killed like 14 props on it over many, many years. Well, because I was in 27,000 islands. The GPS doesn't have everything on it. I have a really nice GPS, a really nice radar. I have nice equipment on that boat. We didn't spare the rod on that boat. They have bulging ribs with shoulder blades and vertebrae visible even from the shore. So I think it's inappropriate that SNL, Saturday Night Live, is mocking whales when the whales are all emaciated. All the migratory male whales were emaciated last year, or emaciated this year. 13,000 whales, all their babies died last year, and they only have 80 babies this year, less than 1% of babies. And they're not going to make it because the mothers are too emaciated to nurture a baby. Mothers with calves are nearly non-existent, indicating the mothers are likely too unhealthy to birth and feed the healthy babies. But the birthing lagoon, Baja Lagoon, New Mexico, is full of dead, emaciated gray whales. Today, even. All right. I'm going to erase everything I got there now that I've done tonight. I've been busy tonight. Holy shit. I got to let the computer... The system's pretty fast, though, I must admit. My system is definitely able to handle whatever I throw at it. Whoever came to my house knows that. Today. It's a bit disappointment, though, they would come into my home. You can't keep them out, right? They want to come in your home. They didn't come in through that window. I can tell you that much. You had to be in my home to open it. Naughty boys. Girls, whoever done it to me. The ultimate contempt, eh? Just try to spook me. Well, thank you, it works. I'm definitely spooked. Wow, you're so impressive. You can invade my life. Yesterday was a weird day, right? Those people were weird. That was weird. So I didn't think that was going to play out that way today. But I got a tendency to even things out. I always got a tendency. I always got a plan. That's why I said this year is going to be a busy year for Dana. More ways than they can predict right now. I'm not predicting what I'm going to be up to this summer, but I can tell you something. It's going to be pretty special. I don't care. This is the year. This breakout year is this year. Alrighty. There's a window I never opened before, which is pretty impressive. It was open when I came home today. That'll just blow your mind. What does? There's nothing I can do about it. If you want to kill me, they'll kill me. Nothing I can do. Hopefully they're that stupid. Let's pray they're that stupid. That might be the catalyst thing for the planet, right? I produced over 4,000 presentations on this. Right, my other site that they gutted until they finally closed it down with 25,800 subscribers for 5 years. Never lost one and gained one in 5 years. That's pretty good, isn't it? And then all those videos were linked. There was 3,000 videos there. They were linked to all kinds of blogs and websites, right? And so they broke that chain by doing that to me. I was out looking for spiders 400 miles away from home in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. And they took down my site. So this site, we got 1,000 videos on it. But all my research expeditions and everything for years and years and years was on my other site. Nasty people, man. They don't care about anything, just the nuclear industry, right? They don't care. They just don't care. Well, I care, and so should you. You should care like your life depends upon it. Your loved ones, your friends, your family's life depends upon it. So James got another song out, and he's got probably the most unique song I've ever seen by far. I thought it was amazing. He went on vacation. Like, I know the feeling. I know where he's coming from because I live, breathe, eat nuclear 24 hours a day. Nuclear is everything because it's such a nightmare to all the species and all the future of humanity, right? And hence the reason we got a poll asking a similar question. Should nuclear power be banned so the future generations can experience birds, insects, and whales and trees? I'm just throwing that out there. Should we or should we not? So James put out, he's been on vacation, and I guess he's talking about his vacation. It's pretty funny. There's some funny stuff in this, man. And so, nuclear vacation, that's what we're going to play tonight. I'm going to put my headphones on here so I don't blast everybody. And James Lucid, he's got 345 anti-nuclear songs. The song we started off with tonight, that amazing song, that's James's song. He's got 345. There's no way you're not going to find 100 that you like, wow, I got to have it. All right. Such a long day, I almost don't want to stop, right? It was a good day, but it was a lot of weird stuff for 2 days now. But it's still, it is what it is. Once they done that to me, then I was like, oh, you want to play like that? I know how to play that game. You don't want to light a fire under me. Because I'm going to make it not worth your time for what you've done to me now. All right, I got to watch the volume. I'm going to adjust it on my end. And you have a great night. Hugs for everybody. Have a great day tomorrow. And see you in the next one. Take care.
like freight from any yard, rolling along like nothing's wrong. But the meter knows what rides inside, and no one else is watching with eyes.